Hi, friends, and welcome to the Wine CEO podcast. I'm your host and certified sommelier, Sarah, and I'm so excited you're here. Do you ever feel like wine is totally intimidating? Maybe you get overwhelmed shopping in the wine aisle and have no idea what to buy for that recipe you're cooking. Or maybe you have to bring a bottle of wine to a dinner party with your in laws and you're nervous to pick one that will taste awful. Well, I'm here to tell you that wine does not have to be stressful. Each week on this podcast, we chat about fun and relatable wine topics that help you learn and feel more confident as a wine consumer. Friends, after a decade in this industry, I know sommeliers can make wine feel snobby or overwhelming, and the average person truly just wants to know, what wine will go with my pizza? How many glasses is too many at a work luncheon? Or how do I know if a wine is sweet? So join me each week as we dive into exciting topics like these and learn about all things wine related. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Let's dive in. Hey friends, and welcome to episode number 124 of the Wine CEO podcast. Mother's Day is this weekend in the US, and many folks are celebrating with brunch or lunch with mom or the loved one in their life. And no matter what time of day you are celebrating, I have picked out the perfect wines for you to bring to celebrate with mom this weekend. And for those of you in the rest of the world who celebrated Mother's Day back in March or April, I'm so sorry that this episode is a little late for you, but you can still use these suggestions next year for Mother's Day, or also just as great transitional wines for spring and summer, as this is the time of year that's kind of interesting, right? For those of us that are in the Northern Hemisphere, it's like not quite summer yet, and depending on where you live, it might still be really hot like in Florida, or it's really cold like up in Michigan where my mom is celebrating this weekend. She's up there because my little sister is actually due any day now to have her first baby. So we are hoping that this little guy makes his entrance into the world soon so that she can celebrate her Mother's Day with him this weekend. But what I'm going to do today is recommend a few options that should be perfect for this weekend, whether you're in really hot climate and need something cool and refreshing, or really cold weather and you need something with a little more body to it. And hopefully there will be something in there for everyone. Now, I'm not going to be recommending any red wines today because I feel like with Mother's Day, folks are typically celebrating in the morning or the afternoon. At least that's kind of what we do here in the US. We'll have like a light brunch or lunch. And this time of year, it just always makes me think of a lighter white wine or a rosé. So if your mom loves red wine, sorry, I'm not going to have one for her in today's episode, but that's okay. That's what I love about wine. There's usually like a standard recommendation from a sommelier that's based on the season or the food pairing or whatever, but you can stick to what you love, and you should, right? You should pick what you enjoy, and you are not wrong by that at all because it is what you love. So give mom what she wants this weekend, but if you're looking for something new or if she's adventurous, then keep on listening because hopefully I have a new wine that you're going to be excited about today. But before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor of today's show, Wash and Wick. Wash and Wick is a candle and soap company located here in Orlando, Florida, my hometown, and they make amazing hand-poured soy candles. The candles have incredible scents. My two personal favorites are the wine-scented candles, which are so authentic to the unique fragrances of these wines because one of their co-founders is a certified sommelier. Wash and Wick is offering 20% off your purchase for Wine CEO podcast subscribers today. So head over to their website, washandwick.com, and use my discount code, the Wine CEO, for 20% off your purchase today. Now, first off, I'm going to put a little disclaimer here. So the wines that I picked out for today's episode are all from France. And I'm not saying that France is the best wines in the world and mom should only drink French wine, but I will tell you, I have a special place in my heart for France. I love French wines. And also, the wines that I picked today just so happen to follow a great theme of being from France, but they're all delicious. They're just great spring to summer wines. They're like these easy transitional seasonal wines. And the regions that I'm recommending for you today, you've probably heard of the grape varieties before, but you may or may not have heard of these specific regions that they come from, where their names are given to the wine from. And I will tell you that these are top quality wines that are not going to break the bank. So you're going to find some really incredible quality wines from these regions that are not necessarily crazy expensive. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first up are two wines that I've honestly been wanting to compare on the show for a while. And topics are always hard for the show. I feel like there's just so many things that I always want to talk about. So it's fun that I was able to dive into this today. And that's comparing Pouilly Fuisse and Pouilly Fume. I love talking about these two wines side by side because they sound so similar, obviously, Pouilly Fuisse and Pouilly Fume, and they're often confused. In fact, when I was first studying for my certified sommelier test, I got them confused all the time. But in reality, these two wines could not be more different. So Pouilly Fume is a Sauvignon Blanc from the eastern part of the Loire Valley, which is about 2 hours northwest of Paris, in the town of Pouilly-sur-Loire. And the name Pouilly Fume comes from the French word fumer, meaning smoke. So this is a reference to the particular soil type that's in the eastern Loire Valley, and it gives the wine really smoky flavors. The soil there is specifically made up of like limestone and flint, and so the Sauvignon Blancs from this region tend to have really mineral notes. They're really like tangy. And so I'm just going to stop here and say that if you are a person who has tried maybe New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc before, and you said, oh, it's really grassy and herbal, and you just didn't care for it, please don't tune me out here, because these Sauvignon Blancs from Pouilly Fume, as well as the neighboring Sancerre in this region of the Loire Valley, are very, very different from those typical grassy kind of vegetal Sauvignon Blancs that you may have tried elsewhere. So they're known for having this just like energy, crisp minerality, and they're so perfect on a hot spring day, especially paired with some goat cheese. Let me tell you, that is like one of the best food and wine pairings out there. And most Pouilly Fume is aged in stainless steel, so it keeps these like flavors really crisp and mineral forward. So it's going to be really refreshing. There are some examples that are made in oak barrels, and they might have a little more body to them and a little more of like rich flavor, but these are definitely not more of the typical style that you're going to find from Pouilly Fume. They're going to be more of the exception. And that's why I'm also recommending the counterpart to Pouilly Fume today, and that's Pouilly Fuisse. So we're comparing these two, but I think they're both great picks for Mother's Day. Now, Pouilly Fuisse is a Chardonnay that is made from the Burgundy region of France, and it's specifically made in the Mâconnais region. And it can come from any of the 4 villages of Vergesson, Solutré-Pouilly, Chantrey, and Fuisse. These villages are known for rich, lemony Chardonnay with a hint of buttery flavor from the malolactic fermentation. And these wines will typically get light oak exposure, and they're not usually as expensive as a lot of the other Chardonnay that you're going to find from around Burgundy, but they are just as delicious, let me tell you. Burgundy has been lobbying for the caliber of their wines for some time now, and in 2020, the first Premier Cru wines were designated in the Mâconnais. In fact, there were 22 total Premier Cru vineyards that were added in 2020. So not bad for a region that had not as much designation for top quality wines up to that recent point. And while these Chardonnays are definitely bolder in body with the malolactic fermentation and oak exposure, I personally don't find them to be as bold and lush as the Chardonnays of California that often feel like you're like drinking buttered popcorn. Obviously, you can probably tell from that description that those are not my personal favorites. I think there's a time and a place for these, but they're just not typically something that I'm going to default to. But I do really enjoy Pouilly Fuisse. I think that these Chardonnays tend to be a little more crisp and lighter in body. And so I feel like this is a great pick for Mother's Day, because if you live in a cooler climate, again, I mentioned Michigan a moment ago, if you're somewhere that's not quite as tropical and warm as Florida right now, and you're looking for something that's maybe crisp, but has a bit more body, is just a little bit heavier this Mother's Day, then I think Pouilly Fuisse is a fabulous pick. Now, again, other than the common name of Pouilly, which is believed to refer to a Roman general by the name of Paulus, who lived in these regions of the Roman Empire, these two wines really do not have much in common. So again, it's easy to confuse the two names because they're so similar. A quick trick that I've used to remember the two is that if you can remember that fume means smoke, sounds kind of like fume, right? So fume, smoke. Smoke is typically like white or gray, and that's what blanc means in French. So Sauvignon Blanc, Pouilly Fume. So you know that the Sauvignon Blanc is the Pouilly Fume, and then that leaves Pouilly Fuisse left over, which is then Chardonnay. So hopefully that's a good trick for you. I think it's just kind of a challenging one to remember which one is which, but if you can remember that little trick, hopefully that helps. And again, I picked these two wines for Mother's Day because one, I feel like they're not quite as well known. And so it could be something fun and different that you could introduce to mom or again, grandma or whoever you're celebrating with this weekend. And then also, as I mentioned a moment ago, I think that you have some variety with these to pick from. So if your mom loves heavier, fuller bodied, maybe you want to go for the Pouilly Fuisse. If she typically goes for like, let's say, Pinot Grigio, and she likes lighter, crisper wines. She usually likes Sauvignon Blanc. Then Pouilly Fume is also great. And so it could be because of the climate where you're living, depending on if the weather's cooler or warmer. But it could also be because of, what she typically enjoys. For Pouilly Fume, I would check out producers Pascal, Jolivet, and Domaine Seguin. And for Pouilly Fuisse, I would check out Domaine Pascal and Domaine Camille, Paquet. Now, in addition to these two white wines that I feel are both great regions to know about, both for Mother's Day and just in general, because you're going to find great quality Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay for really great price points, I also want to mention two other quick options for mom if you're looking for even more diversity of flavor this weekend. I feel like whenever you are celebrating, you need bubbles, right? If you've listened to the show for a while, you know that I default to bubbles a lot because honestly, when you pop a bottle of bubbles, it just means you're celebrating. And so if your mom is anything like my mom, she may love bubbles, love celebrating because it means you're bringing the family together, enjoying a nice toast as you kick off brunch or a family gathering, and you're just all celebrating and having a great time with your loved ones. And mom is always worth the price of a good bottle of champagne, right? But sometimes you are buying 2 or 3 bottles for the whole family, or you're trying to have a little variety. So you may not necessarily be looking to spend $60 to $70 on a single bottle of wine. And for this reason, I am recommending Cremant de Bourgogne, or Cremant of Burgundy, for your sparkling option. And Cremant is the name for all sparkling wines that are made in France in the Champagne method, but that don't come from the Champagne region. So I've mentioned on the show before that for a sparkling wine to be called Champagne, it has to be made in this traditional method and come from the Champagne region. So if it's made in that same traditional method, but it's made in Burgundy or the Loire or Alsace or really anywhere else in France, it's called Cremant. And then whatever region it's from, it'll be Cremant de Bourgogne, so Cremant of Burgundy. And Burgundy is known for growing amazing Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So really you could pick a Cremant from anywhere in France and it's going to be great price point and a very good flavor. But I love Cremant from Burgundy because this region is almost exclusively dedicated to growing Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And these are two of the main grapes in Champagne. And it's also not that far from Champagne. So I feel like you're getting a really great bang for your buck when you're getting a Cremant because it's this amazing quality sparkling wine that tastes very, very similar to the sparkling wines of Champagne, and they're just made a few miles south of Champagne. So really great options for some great producers. I would check out Maison Bouillot and Cab de Lugny. And then last today, I'm recommending a rosé for Mother's Day. It's springtime, so let's be honest, everyone's out there making cute flower arrangements with bottles of rosé poking out of the petals. And so you can give your mom 2 gifts in one, giving her a rosé with a basket full of roses. It's just beautiful. And it's springtime, so everyone loves rosé. And I typically go for rosés that are Grenache based from the Rhone. But this time of the year, as we're getting into like warmer days, I love looking at Provence. Provence is king this time of year, or I guess you could say queen. I love Provençal rosé, and usually I love looking at ones from the region of Bandol. So this is one of my favorites. It's a top appellation in Provence where most of the rosé is made from the red grape Mourvedre. And they're usually full of like fresh berry notes and floral notes and a lot of like spices. So I love how these are rosés that really have great body and great flavor to them. So they're a really great transition from spring to summer. I feel like sometimes in the summertime, I'm looking for just like a really light bodied rosé that's easy to kick back. But when it's a little bit cooler, like as I'm in the springtime, I'm looking for something that's a little more floral, a little bit spicier, still has a little more body to it, because then I can drink it as I'm like moving into cooler evenings. And I feel like like it still really holds up with the body that I'm looking for. They're just a little fuller in the body. So these also work if you're in a cooler climate for that same reason. They really stand up to the cold weather. They give you that fuller flavor on the palate. So I love Provençal rosés from the region of Bandol. So Domaine Tempier is one of my personal favorites. It's very famous from this region, and it's definitely a great one to check out at a reasonable price point. So again, as I mentioned, 4 picks from France, all awesome wines, really great regions that you should know about all year long for some amazing wines to enjoy. And these are the picks for Mother's Day. So if you're looking for the names of the producers that I mentioned in today's episode, definitely check out the show notes, and don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're there so that you never miss an episode of the Wine CEO podcast. This is free wine education, folks. Who doesn't want free content? So subscribe to the show so that each episode downloads for you on Wednesday mornings when the show goes live. And that's all for now. Until next week, friends, I hope you drink something new and delicious. I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day, embracing the moms, grandmas, aunts, sisters, friends, and loved ones in your life. And I will catch you all next Wednesday on the Wine CEO podcast.